All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers now that the draft is behind us. We can take a step back and look at everything the Steelers have done, the strategies they've used, the picks they've made. And for the most part, I think, especially in later rounds, it was pretty good. We already talked about running back Caleb Johnson. But when you dive through it, and now that we've got some new reports and more data coming out, it's clear one pick in particular was the best move any team made this entire draft in terms of the long-term trajectory. The Steelers got a special player. We'll get to that in just one second. But first, I am Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously going into this draft, had some holes to address and did a pretty good job for the most part. But the biggest glaring position that's on everyone's mind is, of course, the quarterback position. And the Steelers did address that, or at least in theory, address part of it in the draft. Let's get into this tweet to refresh everyone's memory on this position here. Then we'll dive into some recent reports and some data, some very phenomenal stuff here. So first, just to refresh everyone's memory, this is from Pittsburgh Steelers X account. With the 185th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, we, Pittsburgh, select quarterback Will Howard out of Ohio State. All right, Will Howard, of course, national championship, had a really good season, right? Veteran guy, seems like a decent pick, grew him into a backup. But there's been a recent report came out. In fact, there was a video courtesy of, found it on X here, I think of an Ohio State account. If you want to go ahead and pull up the transcript here, Miles, if you don't mind. And I think this is Will Howard's comments when asked, why Will Howard? Why should we draft you? This was during an interview with one of the teams. And this is what he said. And you talk about wanting to run through a brick wall. He said, I feel like my whole career I've been overlooked. I didn't have an offer from Pitt. I didn't have an offer from Syracuse. I didn't have an offer from Boston College, Penn State, Duke, Carolina. None of those schools offered. I was trying for years. And I went to Kansas State and I said, I want to prove those people wrong. I hope Penn State looks back and says, damn, we missed out on Will Howard. You know, when I get to the NFL, and I don't want you guys to miss out on me, because every single team that picks a quarterback in front of me, I'm going to make it my mission to make sure that they regret not picking me. All right, this reminded me of two quotes I remember in the past historically. One of them involved Peyton Manning prior to the 1998 NFL Draft. I know high praise, but bear with me. During the interviews with the Indianapolis Colts, he said, listen, if you draft me, you're going to win. I'm going to win for you. You're going to make the playoffs the next 15 years. But if you don't draft me, I'm going to kick your ass for the next 15 years. That's what Peyton Manning said to the Colts. You like that bravado? You like that confidence? The rest is history. How about Tom Brady, 6th-round draft pick? This is famous. This is NFL lore. Meets owner Robert Kraft of the Patriots for the first time and says, hi, I'm Tom Brady. I'm the best decision this organization has ever made, right? You talk about chip on your shoulder. You talk about confidence. You talk about swagger. Manning, Brady. We're seeing some similar things with Will Howard, okay? This is stuff that really matters. The quarterback position is so predicated on leadership, motivating people to fight for you, motivating people to overcome their own weaknesses, to do great things. As much as it matters to have a guy with a cannon arm and great mobility, and that really does matter. So much of this game, the quarterback position, is still being the field general and executing the offense, getting people to believe. Ben Roethlisberger was great at that in his own right. I think Will Howard, you listen to these comments and you look at what happened to Ohio State, he's phenomenal at that as well. In fact, let's go ahead and pull up some of his numbers here, courtesy of his time at Ohio State. This is courtesy of College Football Reference. And you can see the 4 years at Kansas State. But look at his numbers with Ohio State at the end of his career, his 5th year of college football. 73% completion percentage. I thought this guy was supposed to not be very good. 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, right? Yards per attempt, 9.5. Adjusted yards per attempt, 10.07, 10.1. These are great numbers, right? These are 4th, 3rd round, maybe even 1st round pick kind of numbers, right? This is not a guy who's bad at football. He's got great physical tools. For whatever reason, he's been kind of forgotten his entire career. He's kind of slid under the radar. Maybe there were better name guys, bigger name guys, Cam Ward, right? Maybe there was someone at the high school level. But when you look at his numbers and look at his production, I tell you, there is something here with Will Howard. I don't know if he'll grow into be a starter. I don't know if he'll grow into be a star. But I think if he does, people will look back at this draft and say the Steelers did something and they saw something nobody else did. And when you look at his quotes, when you look at his demeanor, when you look at his leadership traits, the personality that matters, there is something special there. You can't discount that. In the NFL and the world of sports, we're so focused on, well, what's his 40-yard dash time or how accurate is his outbreaking throw, right? And that stuff matters. Don't get me wrong. But, what matters sometimes is what's in your head and your heart. And you look at Will Howard and you look at what he did last year at Ohio State. Ohio State was left for dead after losing to Michigan. He carries them to a national title. He's the leader that turned it around. There is something special about Will Howard. And I honestly, I'm gonna make a big prediction now. Will Howard will start games at the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if it's this season. I don't know if it's in the future, but I think there's a great chance here the Pittsburgh Steelers found their long-term answer at quarterback in this great leader from Ohio State. All right, Miles, that's my thoughts. I know it's a big rant. I'm curious what you think. But first, Steelers fans in the comment section below, what do you think of this selection, right? Do you think there's something special with Will Howard, or are you just like, hey, throwaway backup at the end of the draft? I disagree with that, but maybe that's your thoughts. Give us your thoughts on the selection of Will Howard in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you now. What are your thoughts on this move by Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think this is a great move by Pittsburgh, especially talk about value, what they get for him. This late the draft 6th round pick. This is a guy like you said. He's been underrated his whole career, and I really want to go back to what you were talking about there. You talked about a guy a chip on his shoulder, a guy that really just came into this thing and he's like, hey, everyone passed me, and I want to make sure everyone that passes me on the draft, I will make sure they know who I am. And I think that's important because there's more comps to Brady in that sense that Brady did get passed over in his career at Michigan early on. And what did he do? He proved it. He went out and became starter. He played games, and whenever he went to games, it was really hard for them to put him back on the bench. I think he was an important player at Michigan. But even more so, Will Howard, he got passed over in college multiple times, went to Kansas State. He did okay at Kansas State. He did good enough. And then when he got his opportunity, he goes to Ohio State, balls out, and wins the whole dang thing. I mean, how that's even on a bigger level than some of the guys we were talking about earlier. This is a guy that when he was given the opportunity, if we're being honest, I don't think you could have put Tom Brady on Kansas State the last few years and had him go lead that team to a national championship game. It's not the same caliber team we're talking about. But when he was given his opportunity, when Ryan Day and Ohio State said, hey, man, we want you to come to this team. We think you're the starter of this team. You've won the starting job. Go out there, show us what you can do. That's what he did. He won games. He led this team to the college football playoff. Then he led this team to a national championship. And I really think that's something special. And to boot, he had one of his better games versus Notre Dame as well at the end. He played really, really well at an 88.8 overall grade that game, 85.5 passer rating or passing grade per PFF in that game. Did really, really good. So I think Will Howard is a guy that he puts his money where his mouth is. He had the chip on his shoulder in college. When he got his opportunity, he did it. I think he has a chip on his shoulder in the NFL. When the Steelers, inevitably, like you said, I believe you. I think when he gets his opportunity, he's going to prove to them that they make the right choice in selecting Will Howard. I think this guy's going to be special. I think he does a lot of great things. I think he brings a lot of good stuff to the table as well. If you look at some of his passing grades, did really great overall. But one thing I love, 96.3 deep ball grade per PFF last season. When he threw it deep, he did it really, really well. I know he had some great wide receivers at Ohio State. They always do. But Pittsburgh, they got some pretty dang good wide receivers there as well. So this is a guy, he can throw it deep, he can throw it accurate. So overall, that was one thing that stood out to me. Talking 6th-round pick, I think it might take a little bit of time for him to heat up. But given that opportunity, like you said, I think this guy's going to make people regret it. And I think he's proven that he can do that in the past.
And if you listen to Ohio State fans and you go back just one season, right? A lot of people came into last year for Ohio State when they were going through the summer practice, training camp, spring ball, that whole cycle. This was not a guy, Will Howard, who was everyone's consensus favorite. He was not brought in to be the savior. They had Lincoln Kreinholz, who was a talented young player that a lot of people thought, hey, he started the bowl game. Maybe he's the guy. They had Devin Brown, a quarterback that's physical specimen, a lot of great tools, great runner. Everyone's like, he's the guy. Will Howard was sort of brought in as sort of, if backup, decent guy, but these other two young guns with the great athletic skills, they'll be the stars. Will Howard, he's fine. He's a good backup, emergency guy. We'll take it. But we got these two young guns with incredible amount of physical traits. They'll be the guys. And all Will Howard did, day in and day out, practice in and practice out. And then when the game started and the regular season kicked off, every single play, every single snap, he kept earning the right to be there. He kept proving it over and over and over again that he was the best quarterback for this team. Again, it's shades of Tom Brady. It follows that same. And if you think Tom Brady's too hyperbolic, look, Russell Wilson to Seattle, right? Dak Prescott to the Dallas Cowboys. These late round draft quarterbacks that go on to do great things, they all have these same sort of attributes. They all have that leadership quality, that just ability to prove everyone wrong, even though they're always being, or at least early in their careers, they're always about to be replaced by something more athletic or someone who has a better set of arm talent. But it turns out in the end, they just want it more. It shows out and they end up being the starter, the best player, and they end up doing great things. But now we can take a step back from, just opinions. Let's look at the data here. And you talk about the Steelers getting value with Will Howard. That's another important thing to consider. Miles, let's go and throw up one of my favorite charts to talk about just because we're talking about value here. And you can see on the screen here, you've got red on top of blue. And basically what the red plus blue is an indication of Will Howard's ranking on the big board according to PFF, the guys at Pro Football Focus, which I know a lot of Pittsburgh fans hate PFF. Bear with me here. So you take the grade of Will Howard on PFF, you look at where that selection is on the draft value chart, and you get the score. It's about 50 points, right, when it's all said and done. Now, if you look at where the Steelers selected Will Howard in the 6th round, that's that red chunk right there. So if you look at that delta between the red plus blue minus red, so that's just the blue area, that's the free value. That's the free money the Pittsburgh Steelers got picking up Will Howard as late as they did, right? Basically, he was a 4th round graded prospect by NFL.com, PFF, everyone. Everyone says, yeah, he's a 4th round guy. By falling to the 6th round, the Steelers got incredible value. And that's a really insightful thing to really consider here, because quarterbacks tend to be positions where people reach. We saw the Saints reach a little bit. We saw the Seahawks reach a little bit with Jalen Milroe. Here, the Pittsburgh Steelers take the smart approach. They get who I think is the best quarterback outside the top 2 guys, and they got him with incredible value. Phenomenal move by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And look, I know we're all waiting to see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. It's a saga that won't end. But I tell you what, Pittsburgh fans, I think the future is very, very bright, because I think you have something special here in Will Howard. It may take some time, like you said, Miles. I think that's a great point. When it's all said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if Will Howard ends up being the franchise quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers.